Italy missed their third straight World Cup.
Yeah.
I am in absolute shambles. I had explained to my 90-year-old grandmother on how she's unable to watch the Italians again. Jake, what was your reaction to that game? And do you have any words of comfort for me who's worried about the federation, worried about the lack of young player success and everything under the sun?
I mean, at least the United States are in the World Cup. I'll say that they will be playing in the World Cup. Like, at least that's the case.
Do
sorry,
we want
man.
that?
Sorry
Jake,
for you. Yeah,
Jake, brother, do we want
at least
that?
they're playing games. It's better than Italy, right? So for the so many Italian Americans, I feel bad. And I'll extend that to Ireland, though Ireland was a longer shot to make it. But to have Ireland and Italy in this World Cup in North America would have been incredible just because of the massive communities of Italian Americans, Italian Canadians. You know, Italy was going to play Canada in that first game in Toronto, which is a huge Italian city. Would have been a wild atmosphere of red and blue in that stadium. It's wild, man. It's like a curse. I'm sorry. It's just shocking for – I'm 40, so I grew up. The first, the 94 World Cup is the first one I remember, and Baggio misses the penalty against Brazil, but Italy were a power, right? And then of course they won the World Cup in my lifetime. So to think that Italy would miss 3 straight World Cups is unfathomable. It's hard in Europe. Europe is a really difficult and it's an unforgiving qualifying format because you basically have to win your group. Yep. And there's really only like 2 teams in every group that can win it. So it comes down to just a game or 2. And if you miss them, now you got to go a playoff route and things can happen like an early red card. And now you're up against it. And I thought when it got to penalties, they would do it. But man, the pressure, the pressure's all on Italy in those penalties because they've missed 2 in a row. They're expected to be there. They couldn't handle it clearly. And Bosnia and Herzegovina could.
And they had the young player first. A lot of Italian, Italian fans like myself, why are we putting him first and not, Keane up there? But it shouldn't have came to that. Like, Jake, it should have never came to that. And like you mentioned the qualifications and like, God, Norway. How about that? Jake, if Norway goes to the World Cup and has an absolute stinker like they usually do, I'm going to be a little upset. They had a group stage performance like something I've never seen before.
But look, in that group, Norway probably has the 2 best players. At least, I mean, Erling Haaland is the best player in that group by far and one of the best players in the world. And
I would agree.
Italy doesn't have a guy like that, right? And so, I was talking to somebody else the other day and like, who's Italy's best player or most famous player? It's probably Donnarumma, right? The goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And that's not a great thing when we're used to have Italy having a couple world-class players that just roll off the tongue and are really familiar to every soccer fan in the world. And they don't really have that anymore.
And Jake, that sticks out to me because my brother and I have a famous saying, no one wants to score goals. No young soccer player, football player wants to score goals in Italy anymore. Where the hell is my striker? Where are my wingers? Where?
Italy's always been about the defense, hasn't it?
I know,
right?
we don't play like that, but geez, Jake, no one wants to score goals. You got, great midfield, Tonali, Barea, and obviously Bastoni picked up the damn card, but like DeMarco and Donnarumma. There's players, man. Jake, once again, I'm sitting here and looking for answers. Now, let's flip it on over to the United States men's national team. And once again, Jake Zivin, lead MLS play-by-play man on Apple TV. We all see him. We'll get into, new stadium, Inter Miami and MLS stuff here in a second. It was a huge international window. And then specifically with Team USA getting outscored 7-2 in these fixtures. Now, the Portugal game, I guess, was a little better than the Belgium game. But Jake, at this point, I told you, partner, I'm like, they're going to be in the World Cup, but do we even want to see them in the World Cup at this point? What's your synopsis on this team after watching these 2 games?
It's disappointing, right? I mean, we're waiting for them to really be able to compete and play at the same level as some of these world powers. And we haven't seen it. And look, there's been positives. I mean, beating Uruguay 5-1, whatever it was in November, that seems like a long time ago now. But that was a great performance. And Uruguay's a really good team, but they're not Belgium. They're not Portugal. And if the U.S. wants to do what we all want them to do in a World Cup and really succeed and kind of capture the attention of the nation and go on a run, they're probably going to have to win at least one game against a traditional soccer power, right? A Belgium, a Portugal, maybe it's a huge upset over like a Germany, a France. Right. I don't know, right? And we'll see how the bracket plays out. And but now, I'm leaving these games. I think most people are with questions of that Turkey game is going to be really hard now. Really hard. Like the draw came and everybody thought, oh, they got a great draw, got a great group because it's Australia and it's Paraguay and now this European playoff team. But all of a sudden Turkey wins this playoff, which of course they were favored to do. And they're going to be the favorite in that group, I think, even with the U.S. playing at home because of the recent results. And, there's still a couple games left, right, after the roster is announced. And I hope the team has a little bit of a better showing just to give more confidence and buzz around the group coming into the World Cup because, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. The questions of how they can get past a really big kind of world power, those still persist and I think are stronger than ever.
And I think Maurizio Pochettino was, a manager and a gaffer that got brought in to take us to the next level, to, get back to being one of the final 8 teams. And Jake, the last time we had you on the show, we kind of both agreed, like, be one of the last 8 remaining. And yeah. I'm sorry, 7-2. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Getting outscored 7-2, it certainly doesn't seem that way. Jake, do you think this team has had enough time to gel together? I think that's actually, if the Pochettino could complain about one thing, I think maybe it's players skipping out on the Gold Cup in a tournament like that, not to have that camaraderie. I mean, I explained to the audience, like, players who play for Argentina and Brazil, they'll miss club games. Right. They'll be injured for club games, and all of a sudden they're good to go for the national team. That doesn't seem to be the standard for the U.S. right now. Has this team had enough time to mesh together for Pochettino?
Look, have they had enough time? Yes. This is basically the same group that played in Qatar, right? I mean, you look at the guys who lost big to Portugal and Belgium. The majority of those guys were playing against the Netherlands in Qatar. But they haven't played meaningful games with each other. And that's the difference. They didn't have to go through qualifying, and certainly they didn't under Pochettino, right? And so the Gold Cup, it feels like a missed opportunity to play those meaningful games. But even if they had their full A team, so to speak, for the Gold Cup, you're still getting, 1 or 2 tough games, right? Like really tough. And even, like games against the competition, the level of competition that, like I said, everybody wants them to beat this summer to really capture the attention of the country. So that's kind of there's a gift and there's a curse with hosting a World Cup. And that's the one bad part is you don't have to qualify. So you miss out on those games. But these guys, again, they've played important games with each other. It's not like it's a new group. It's not like it's a new generation. This is the extension of that same generation. And so I don't know what it is. I mean, Mauricio Pochettino continues to tinker. He continues to change things up. He was forced a little bit tactically because of injuries to his center backs before that Belgium game. But, even Matt Turner getting the start there and now going without a number 9 against Portugal. And I think there's a lot of desire to like, hey, let's just see what it's going to be like and have some consistency. That said, Mauricio Pochettino was hired to do one thing, and that's to have a successful World Cup. So we can't judge him until we know what happens at the World Cup, right? Because it's all leading there. That's all that matters. Yep. These games won't matter if they have a successful World Cup this summer.
I agree. And that's why, I asked, have they had enough time? Has Pochettino had enough time with the guys who are actually going to be playing? Partner, you brought him up. I think we got to have a tough conversation about Matty Turner. Listen, I thought Turner played well enough in the last World Cup, but I just like, Jake, you and I watch Freeze. And listen, I know it was a 2-0 result against Portugal. He did get the start. Partner, I would start Freeze at this point. I really would. I think he's the better goalkeeper. I don't know. You cannot trot, especially after that stinker against Belgium. I don't think you could trot that guy out there anymore.
I don't think they will. I mean, look, Freeze had started, I think, 13 straight games under Pochettino before everybody was surprised when Matt Turner got that game. And I don't know what's going on in Pochettino's mind. I mean, he does seem to really want to keep everybody almost on their toes and keep them competitive. And that was a criticism for the group in 22, and a criticism for Greg Berhalter is that everybody felt comfortable in their positions. Nobody felt like the person behind them was going to take their spot in the starting 11 or just in the squad. Pochettino has, I think, clearly tried to change that and has done a nice job of that by bringing in a lot of players, giving a lot of players opportunities. Maybe it's a step too far to bring Turner in for that game when it seems like Freeze is going to be the number 1. Yep. Certainly the thought now is, it'll be Freeze. It'll be back to Freeze in the World Cup. And like you said, he was good against Portugal. The eye test shows he was better in this window. But I don't know. Pochettino has surprised, and maybe he'll have another one. And I do like Matt Freeze, though. I think to your point, he instills a little more confidence, I think, at this point
And
of
even,
all the goalkeepers.
Jake, even back to the Gold Cup where he was making saves, and I think at this point in his career, he deserves that spot. Now, Jake Zivin is joining us, lead MLS play-by-play man for Apple TV. Jake, the last thing internationally, England is always gonna surround the headlines when it comes to football. And I mean, geez, listen, Jake, I don't even mind shouting them out because they're a pond away. But partner, I love Talk Sport. I can't get enough of Simon Jordan.
Okay.
I can't get enough of Jim White. Listening to them this morning, I mean, the sky is falling. The sky is falling after losing to Japan 1-0. They're already out on Thomas Tuchel. It seems like any Englishman you ask about Thomas Tuchel, first off, they can't believe that he's, coaching the team at being German. Where are you at with England? Because the group, they didn't get a good group. They got a tough draw on the group. Is this a team that you could see, being one of the last? I think if they're not one of the last 4 remaining, I think England fans will be upset. Hell, if they don't win the thing, England fans are going to be upset. But
Right.
What do you think are the realistic? What do you think the realistic result is going to be for England in this World Cup? I mean, Jake, Argentina, France, Spain. I mean, I probably would put them ahead of England at this point, and it's crazy with the roster they have.
Those are probably the 3 favorites, as you said, but England will be right there in kind of that next tier. I agree with you. They got a pretty tough group in a World Cup that doesn't have a lot of tough groups, right? When you expand it to 48 teams, there's just like not going to be those groups of death that you would see in the past. So really, you're looking at, okay, what groups have 3 good teams as opposed to have 4 good teams, and with Croatia and Ghana, that's 3 good teams. Panama, in North America, close to home, maybe they could do something. They've obviously caused the United States a lot of problems the past couple of years, but I don't think anybody's considering them at the level of those other teams. But the format's so forgiving now. Third-place teams get in. Not every third-place team, right? But so I think England, you beat Panama, and you're probably already just guaranteed yourselves going through at the worst, even if you lose the other 2 games. But look, they'll be, I think, right, quarterfinalists at least. They'll be predicted to be, and then who knows from there. It depends if the draw puts them up against a France, a Spain, and I haven't done all the permutations in the bracket.
No, for sure.
Okay, who could make it in the quarterfinals? But if they have to face one of those really good teams in the quarterfinals, one of them is going to get knocked out. If not, it's a decent kind of path. Then sure, semifinals and why not further? I don't know about winning, but at one point it'll come home, right? I don't know. I don't know if it'll be this summer.
Hang on, Jake. I'm a big baseball guy over here. I did not like losing that World Baseball Classic 2nd year in a row. I did not like losing that. We were not able to deploy our pitching correctly. So I actually know how England feels. I know how England feels about the trophy not coming home. All right, listen, bonus one, last international question. Obviously, with the U.S., there's a tremendous amount of pressure. I think you're seeing that in these friendlies and everywhere. Outside of the U.S., who's under the most pressure? Is it Canada? Is it Mexico? Or is it a team across the pond that maybe isn't going to be one of the host nations?
Man, I think Mexico always has an incredible amount of pressure. They were like kind of booed and jeered against in a 0-0 draw against Portugal in this window, right? So Mexico played Portugal first and then Belgium second, and they flipped. And man, like you listen, you read some kind of more reasonable pundits, and they're like, this was a good result. Like, yeah, we didn't dominate the game against Portugal. We're not going to. Portugal is one of the best teams in the world, but we held them scoreless, and we got out of there with a draw, and they're getting jeered. And I think the fans were even olaying Portugal at some point, which is like you go like every Portugal pass, ole, and it's coming from Mexican fans and not Portuguese fans. They get a 1-1 draw against Belgium. So this is a really positive international break for Mexico, especially when you compare it to what the U.S. did against the
sky's falling over here. All right.
Yeah. But there's so much pressure internally, and being at home, I mean, the expectations will be sky high to have a good performance for Mexico. And outside of that, it's England. Yeah, as you said, right? I mean, they always have to have that pressure. And Argentina will have a little bit as defending champs, though there's so much goodwill from that. And Brazil, right? Who, haven't been the Brazil that most people are used to. Can they be that Brazil again in a World Cup this summer? Doesn't seem like they don't seem like they have that group to do it, but you never know.
They need a striker, Jake.
Yeah.
They Victor Roque, and they're starting Vinicius up there. They need a striker. I mean, my God, it's a Brazilian team that doesn't have a striker. All right, Jake, let's get to the MLS because obviously we're opening up new stadium here, coming up with Inter Miami this weekend. Partner, you going to be there?
Yeah, we're there.
Oh, dude, I'm going to find you. I'm going to find you.
Come say hi.
I'm gonna find you.
I don't know where to tell you to meet.
Oh, dude, no, trust me.
Nobody has.
None of us do. None of us do. It is so. I plan on getting there about 3 hours before the match, so I'm sure I'll run into you there. But partner, we haven't, we haven't had MLS action over the last week. Inter Miami, left a good taste in our mouth against NYCFC before that international break. I haven't talked to you since Inter Miami got bounced from the Concacaf Champions Cup. I mean, I've heard a lot of crazy rumors about Berterame, and everyone's got a conspiracy theory on how, Javier Mascherano is insane for passing the ball back after going up 1-0. Where are you at with the team in general after the last couple of fixtures?
Obviously, the Concacaf Champions Cup is a big disappointment. After MLS Cup, Jorge Mas and David Beckham did an interview with Jillian Sakovic on our broadcast. This is minutes after winning MLS Cup. And they said, next is the Concacaf Champions Cup. And then we want to win that so we can be back in the Club World Cup. And this was clearly the next goal for this club, was winning the Concacaf Champions Cup. So to go out in the first round that they were in against a team that they've had a lot of success against over the past 3 years is obviously a big disappointment. They still haven't clicked, right? I mean, look, they're going to be fine, and they're in a good place in the standings. But when you watch them play, they don't. It doesn't look like this year's group has clicked. Berterame is perplexing to me. That he just doesn't look like he fits in. Yeah. It's only been 8-9 games, all competitions. There's plenty of time for him to integrate and for everybody to figure out how to play best with each other. But when they weren't playing with him and they went back to that kind of formation or that setup that we saw in the playoffs with Messi as kind of a false nine, and you've got Allende and Silvetti on either side of him, these runners. And Allende can also drop back on the right wing. Segovia is kind of taking that Baltasar Rodriguez role on the left side in the midfield. So whether it's a 4-4-2 or 4-3-3, however it's going to look, more 4-3-3, it just works, and it looked good, and it worked again. And Berterame comes in, and so that moves where Messi's going to play as either a second striker or a 10, and it doesn't quite look the same, or even on the right wing as a playmaker, it doesn't look the same. So I don't know. I don't think it's a difficult decision for Javier Mascherano. I think it's a difficult task for him to unlock Berterame. They spent $15 million on this guy. He is a good striker. Like, Portland wanted him, were willing to pay the release clause. They got close. Didn't happen. He decided to stay in Mexico because he wanted to wait to get citizenship. Cincinnati did the same thing. They thought he was coming. They were paying the $15 million release clause. I think they'd even agreed, and he backed out at the last minute, again, to stay in Monterrey, to stay in Mexico. Finally, Miami convinced him to come to MLS. Of course, Messi, like that's the carrot.
Yeah.
But it hasn't looked like he hasn't looked like a striker that teams were clamoring for and trying to get to MLS for years. I think he's there. He's still that player, but they've got to figure out how to bring that out of him.
And Jake, with what you just said there, they brought him in for CONCACAF Champions Cup to go to the next level and possibly win that tournament. I remember when he killed Inter Miami for Monterrey. Remember when what was it, 2 years ago? I feel like that was a big, I don't want to say tryout, but I mean, that was a big reason why I think Jorge Mas, David Beckham and company wanted to bring him in. Now, partner, I think the NYCFC game might have gave him a lot of confidence. I mean, Jake, that team, I was very surprised. I mean, Morales and Ojeda. I mean, and I know we've seen NYCFC before, but it seems like they might be on a little bit of a different level this year with the attack, with Freeze and goal. Freeze didn't even play well in the game, but I think that match might have gave Inter Miami the confidence of, hey, we're still here. We're MLS Cup champions. Let's put all our eggs in this MLS basket and let's go for it. I think that an NYCFC game gave them some confidence after a bad CONCACAF crash out.
Yeah, and NYCFC is a really good team. I mean, they made it to the Eastern Conference Final last year. They went on kind of that surprise run, and then that game was closer than the scoreline, that Eastern Conference Final. Rocco Rios Novo made an incredible save in like the 60th, 70th minute that would have, I think, leveled the game, or I think it would have put New York City ahead. And then Miami comes down the other way, and then the floodgates open. They get their goals, and maybe it would have ended that way regardless. But New York City played Miami really well in that Eastern Conference Final, despite, again, a really, really lopsided score. And they've played really well to begin this season. They're going to be a really good team in the East this year. I think Yankee Stadium fits Miami well. The defenders don't have to defend in as much space because it's the smallest pitch in Major League Soccer. So that kind of takes away perhaps a weakness of Inter Miami. I think Miami can struggle when the game gets super stretched. They can struggle in the defense because they want to go forward so much. And now you're leaving defenders on an island. There's never really an island at Yankee Stadium. There's not enough room for one. And also when you have highly technically skilled players like Miami does playing in a smaller, that's going to benefit. A smaller pitch is going to benefit the team with the highly skilled, highly technical, and really intelligent players. So it's a good place for Miami to play and win. But I agree, coming off of a really disappointing CONCACAF Champions Cup exit, I think that'll give them a lot of confidence. They don't need confidence; they have it. But and now coming home to this new stadium. I mean, yes, they played it. I guess it's now known as Inter Miami Stadium. It's no longer Chase Stadium. They played that second leg there, but it's been a long time on the road for them. Preseason in South America and Central America, and then around the country to begin this year for the first month. Now they can settle in at new stadium, as it's known, and feed off of what should be an incredible atmosphere.
Now, Jake, appreciate all the time, partner. Once again, Jake Zivin, lead MLS play-by-play man for Apple TV. We all hear him and Taylor Twellman on those great broadcasts. Now, Jake, rank them. Inter Miami, Nashville, and LAFC. This moment in time, at least in my opinion, partner, I know Inter Miami technically third on the Eastern Conference table, but those three, I think, Nashville, Inter Miami, and LAFC, I think those are different gravy, but rank those three. And if I'm missing a top three team at this point in Jake Zivin's eyes, you let me know and you rank them.
I'd go LAFC 1. They have not been scored on. And look, they beat Miami 3-0.
They look crazy.
You have to go
Nashville.
Nuts. They look nuts. Though they don't dominate. I mean, that's the thing. Austin's coming into town, right? So I just a few days ago watched with kind of a fine-tooth comb Austin's last game, which was against LAFC. And LAFC, they're coming off Concacaf Champions Cup for that game, but they weren't super inspiring. Scoreless draw. They'll be fine. Nashville 2 and a close 2, and they have to be ahead of Miami. They beat them. Though I guess it was to be fair, they didn't beat them. Both games were draws. They advanced past them because of the away goals rule. But still, you got to put them above. And then Miami. But I think the team you're missing are the Vancouver Whitecaps. Yeah. I think they might be the best team in the league. The team that Miami beat in MLS Cup, they look great. Great. And they've been blowing teams out. And they're out of CONCACAF Champions Cup now, which actually might help them because they don't have to worry about two competitions. Yeah. So to me, those are a good top 4. San Diego thrown there as well, but it's gonna be a good. It's been an interesting season.
Jake,
because
the
usual suspects aren't there.
The Vancouver,
Columbus, Cincinnati, etc. Yeah.
Listen, that championship game got a bit dicey for a little bit against Vancouver.
It did. Of course, it did.
So
if they hit the post 3 times in 5 seconds, if that goes
unbelievable.
Vancouver are probably the champions right now if that goes in.
Appreciate Jake for joining us. You can follow him on X and Twitter at Jake Zivin. That is at Jake Zivin, and obviously we all see him on the Apple TV broadcast. Jake, thank you so much, partner. Listen, I'm going to find you coming up Saturday at New Stadium. I don't know where I might be in the rafters, partner. I might be all the way up, but I'm going to scream down to you.
Too.
Yeah, might be.
I don't know.
It might be on the catwalk, standing up, doing the broadcast, but partner, I can't wait. And listen, you got to tell Taylor Twellman, JJ Weatherholt. I told him JJ Weatherholt was going to be a star for St. Louis Cardinals, and I'm looking forward to him getting me some dinner when the Red Sox hit the over.
Hey, you come tell him, find us at New Stadium.
I'm going to parachute down. Jake, I'm a parachute down from the catwalk up top.
Can't wait. Shawn Michaels, get one of those.
Yes.
Rappel down.
Jake, thanks again, partner. Appreciate all the time as always.
Anytime, my man.